In this video, we will look at how to utilize Ethernet Intersystems Communications with Crestron VC-4. There are two scenarios that we will outline in this video. Scenario 1, VC-4 to VC-4. Scenario 2, Crestron Control System Hardware Appliance to VC-4. To start, we will explain the concept of the Ethernet Intersystems Communication symbol, also known as EISC. The EISC symbol allows Ethernet communications between two control systems that each have an EISC symbol defined. The inputs of one EISC symbol propagates to the outputs of the connected EISC symbol and vice versa. Since we are discussing the EISC symbol in relation to virtual control, please note that the 3 Series TCP/IP Ethernet Intersystems Communications is not compatible with VC-4. Scenario 1, VC-4 to VC-4. The first scenario we will cover is VC-4 running on a VC-4-PC-3 communicating with a VC-4 running on a standard server appliance. We have 2 example programs open in simple windows. There is a different symbol to add to each program to make them communicate back and forth. Note that this will provide two-way communications between the 2 VC-4 programs. In the first program, we need to add an EISC client. In the second program, we will add an EISC server. It does not matter which program has which symbol, just that one of each must be utilized in total between the 2 programs. The client and server symbols must have the same IP ID in each program. Next, we need to enter the IP information. In the first program, enter the IP address of the server that will run the second program. In the second program, put the IP address of the first program. In other words, the client and server, no matter which program has each, will be pointed to the other IP address. In this case, we have added the client to the first program and the server to the second. This will allow two-way communications. Remember, there must be one client and one server between the 2 programs that are communicating, and they must share the same IP ID. Now that we have defined our client and server in each program, we will look at how signals are passed between these symbols. On the client, we will go to the programming view and open an SIO. We will trigger the SIO from the press of the EISC client. Next, we will open the SIO and the serial signal side of the EISC server. The send string signal we created earlier will be placed here on the trigger of the SIO. For the transmitted output, we will name the client $. On the received input to the SIO, we will name the client $. Next, on the serial tab of the EISC, we will connect the client $, to the output side of the EISC client and the client $, on the input of the EISC client. We will now do the opposite in the other program. Notice how everything is the same, except instead of using the word client, we use the word server. The string output here is server string to client. we will compile and load both programs. Next, we will add a room to each VC-4 and associate the program we loaded in each to those rooms. We will also enable debugging. We need to associate one of the VC-4 instances with the other for the EISC to function. We will navigate to the VC-4 web UI that is running the server symbol, navigate to Settings, and then Devices. We need to press this button here. Select Show All Device Models. Select VC-4 and choose Associate Device. Now that we've associated it on one side, we do not need to do the other. We can see here under Status that it is online. Next, we will open Simple Debugger. We already saved the address book entry, including the token and the room ID, which are required to connect to Debugger. Also, as referenced in the debugging video in this series, you must enable debugging in your room. This is done here as an example. Now, in Simple Debugger, we can trigger this signal here on the client EISC, and that will send the serial string from this program to the other. Notice how the string is empty on everything right now. Now that we pressed Send, we can see the string successfully passed from the client program EISC to the server program EISC. We can also do the opposite on the server side, and we can see that string be received into the client program EISC. Note that you can send any signal using this method. We are just using a serial string as an example in this video. The second scenario we will cover is a VC-4 running on a VC-4-PC-3 communicating with a simple Windows program running on an RMC3. We already created these programs, but we'll outline the differences from the other example. In this scenario, we need to use a VC-4 EISC client on the RMC3 and an EISC server on the VC-4 program. Here, we have these programs already created. If we go to Configure on the VC-4 EISC client, we only need to define the IP ID and room ID here. The IP address should be left blank. The way to define the IP address of the VC-4 in the RMC3 is to go to the console and enter the following commands. In this example, the IP address of the VC-4 is 192.168.2.111. Now, if we go to the VC-4 web UI, the text console of the RMC3, we can see that the IP table is online in both places. You have now seen an example of configuring an EISC client and an EISC server between two VC-4 programs, associating the EISCs with each other in the Virtual Control web UI, and two-way communication between these programs. In the other example, we discussed how to connect a VC-4 simple Windows program to an RMC3 running a simple Windows program.